Joseph Vero is the kind of guy I wanted to grow up to be. My parents ran and still run a smallish manufacturing company here in Ohio, and from a very, very early age, I found myself surrounded by and enamored with mills and lathes and CNC control panels and CAD/CAM software running on Windows 98 PCs and all their luxurious beigeness. All of that led to an obsession with breaking things down, tearing them apart, designing things, making things, building things, creating. And that obsession led me to a trip to college to study for a mechanical engineering degree. Needless to say, that trip was short-lived because here I am making YouTube videos about knives. Joseph Vero, however, he went the distance, got his degree, and went off to design drones. He designed and built a fucking electric motorcycle, for Christ's sake. And then, after all of that, he designed a knife, and then he redesigned it, and then he redesigned it, then he had it made, and then he designed another one, and another one, and another one, and then he designed this. This is the Vero Engineering Axon, or to be more precise, this is the full-size brass Axon liner lock, and right off the bat, Jojo is a big fan of giving people options. A lot of options. There is a variant for anyone and everyone's taste available for all of the Vero designs, and I love to see that. I purchased this Axon secondhand off my good friend Jason Grant. You may know him. He is the man behind the Grant Gripper prototype, which I fell in love with, and I had it on the channel not too long ago. Watched that review, and I had only borrowed this one from him to review. He was kind enough to lend it to me, but I loved it too much to send it back. You see, I had never owned anything from Vero because, well, they're not exactly easy to get a hold of. They are, in fact, so insanely popular that most pre-orders and pretty much every single drop is sold out in a matter of seconds. Not minutes, seconds. So after trying and failing to buy one early on, I got discouraged like one tends to do, and I gave up trying. And not to mention, on the secondary market, for the most part, you're going to be paying quite a hefty premium over the retail value, and the penny pincher in me just can't live with ever paying more than retail. At any rate, the Axon here was the Vero design that always spoke to me the most. Like every Vero knife, the styling is simple, clean, very sort of ultra-modern with a touch of vintage swagger that's hard to explain, especially in brass. The brass seems to add a bit of old-world charm, old-world class to an otherwise ultra-modern, uber-minimal design. And I suppose it's obvious as to why the Axon was always my favorite. Yeah, that's right. The warning. That beautiful 3.5-inch long M390 Wharncliffe at the business end has had my name all over it since I first saw it. Simple, clean, and modern. A yum. The pocket clip seems to be a point of contention around the knife community. Some hate it, others seem indifferent. Personally, on this particular model, I have not really had any complaints. It carries nice and deep, really secure, and it's been pretty easy to get it in and out of my pockets. And like how it's mounted from the inside of the scale, so it looks as if it's being held on by magic or some kind of futuristic technology not yet discovered. It's a good looking clip, for sure, overall. And overall, this full-size front-flipping folder is just as clean as a damn whistle as far as the aesthetics go. Minimal hardware, nothing too flashy, nothing insane, nothing really all that fancy, but sweet Jesus does it look excellent tip to tail. Moving away from the looks, the ergos on this big brass brick are actually pretty solid. Now, we don't have any kind of outwardly visible ergonomic lines, but in hand, we've got plenty of room for a full 4-finger grip. That low-profile pocket clip basically is completely unnoticeable, no matter how hard you squeeze, and even though we don't have much in the way of a finger choil or any room at all to choke up, I still always feel locked in and in full control of that big warnie when I'm slicing and dicing up the day's junk mail. We also do not get much in the way of jimping, except for just a little bit on the blade spine, but again, I never feel like I'm gonna slip off the handle and launch it across the room. It's a nice knife to hold and one that I've really enjoyed using. And speaking of slicing and dicing up the day's junk mail, let's talk about the blade. That beautiful slab of M390 on this particular variant is rocking this lovely hand satin finish with the lines that go side to side, not up down. And that warnie is also sporting a fantastic full flat grind, so we have a decently thin final cutting edge. Geometry is good, and overall, performance has been fine. But, and this is in all caps, but, I did scratch the living shit out of that hand satin finish. on both sides. And no, I wasn't cutting open a tin can or trying to stab a hole through a car door prior to purchasing it. When I was just borrowing it, I was doing some cut tests for my review, and the very first Amazon box I broke down destroyed the finish on the blade. So heed my warning when I say, if you plan on using your Axon at all, do not get the hand satin finish on the blade. Also, one other minor complaint, the factory edge was not all that great. Visually, this thing looks stupid slicey, but it just wasn't quite cutting it for me personally. So after throwing it on the work sharp and slapping a sloppy 17-degree edge on it, I'm happy to report that it is an absolute laser beam now. And one that I have adored using since the reprofile. Heat treat seems great, edges holding up really, really well, and all in all, it's an excellent looking blade with a ton of potential if you're willing to scratch it up and get your hands dirty. And finally, the action. Well, the looks have always been the main reason for my interest in this piece, but the action was always up there on my reasons why you should buy one list. The Axon here is a front flipper, hence the heavily jimped little nubbin on the blade spine, and as a front flipper, it's an absolute home run. Nice and snappy, regardless of the soft-ish detent. Really easy to get a hold of the tab for your fancy reach-around flips or side finger flips and all that good stuff. And as an added bonus, JoJo was kind enough to give us a pair of his signature deployment grooves. Slots? Notches? Either way, they work an absolute treat for thumb flicks and spidey flicks, and again, despite the softish detent, it feels damn good opening this thing every which way you can imagine. And on the close is where this thing really shines. I'm not sure what kind of space-age bearings Bestech put in this thing, but thanks to their unquestionable smoothness and the undeniable heft and weight of that big warnie, this thing is a full-blown finger-eating guillotine. One of the smoothest, most insanely drop-shut actions that I have ever experienced in all of my collecting. It has bit me numerous times. That's how drop-shutty it is. Really insanely well done action, and to be honest, the action has been the main reason I've carried this thing so much, and, well, will probably continue to do so. Truly mind-blowing action. So where does all of this leave me with the full-size Vero Axon liner lock in brass? Well, I am a believer. Like I said, I had lost hope that I would ever be able to get a hold of a Vero for myself, for my own collection, and now that I have, I get it. I understand why they sell out in 22 seconds flat. I understand why they're priced so high on the secondary. People want them, and I get it. The looks, the styling, that clean, modern, minimal aesthetic speaks to the masses, and myself included. The action is absolutely out of this world, not to mention the sheer amount of colors and options and materials available. It's a home run, it really, really is. But as much as I love it, as much as I have fallen in love with it, and as much as I highly recommend you get your hands on one, if you can, I have to leave you with a caveat, with a word of warning. Please, don't get your hopes up. I did, and it nearly broke me. In fact, it did break me. I had gotten to a point where I had just convinced myself that Veros suck just because I couldn't have one. Don't be like me. Be patient. Stay calm. It will only make your first Vero all that more exciting in the end. So until next time, thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.